Lesson 6 is the process called IT Service Continuity Management, and it has 5 main objectives. First, we'll understand the objective and activities of IT Service Continuity Management. We'll also learn key vocabulary terms and concepts related to this process. Next, we'll explore how IT Service Continuity Management supports and underpins business continuity management. We'll also learn the basics of risk analysis and risk management. And we'll wrap up this section by learning about the duties of the person in the IT Service Continuity Manager role. IT Service Continuity Management is all about ensuring that our IT services have a continuity plan, or a plan for restoring those services in the event of a disaster. For the exam, if you're not familiar with the term IT Service Continuity Management, it's okay if, just for the exam, you think of IT Service Continuity Management as a fancy way of saying disaster recovery. IT Service Continuity Management encompasses much more than simple disaster recovery, but for purposes of the foundation exam, you can keep it simple and just think of it in terms of disaster recovery. Speaking of disasters aren't always natural. When we say the word disaster, most people think of tornadoes, fires, and floods. But what about things like power outages, or a water pipe that bursts that's right above the data center, or a virus that infects everyone on the network? We need to keep these types of scenarios and many more in mind when we're coming up with our IT service continuity plans. The main objectives of IT service continuity management are, first, to maintain a set of IT service continuity plans and recovery plans. Next, we also need to make sure that our IT service continuity management plans are aligned to the business continuity management plans. This means that the business needs to have a plan on how they're going to continue their business operations, even if it's in a reduced capacity in the event of a disaster. The business's business continuity plans have to be spelled out clearly in advance, so IT can make sure that the services IT recovers first are the ones that are most important to the business. Our IT service continuity management process also has us completing regular business impact analyses to ensure that our continuity plans line up with the needs of the business, since the needs of the business are constantly changing. If you need a definition for a business impact analysis, you can look in the book that came with this DVD. IT service continuity management also has us conducting risk analysis and risk management exercises so we can find and fix areas of weakness. During this process, we'll also help negotiate contracts with vendors and suppliers who might provide us with recovery options. Lastly, the IT service continuity management process reminds us to assess the impact of all production changes to see if they're going to impact our IT service continuity management or disaster recovery plan. It's important to note here that IT service continuity management focuses only on those events that the business has determined important enough to be a disaster. So even though this process is about IT service continuity management, we get our direction from the business. Long-term business risks are going to be handled by the business, and they aren't covered by this process, since this process focuses on IT specifically. Also, small technical faults will be dealt with as part of the incident management process, not IT service continuity management. This slide is taken directly from the IT Service Continuity Management chapter of the Service Design book. This image also contains a bit more information than you'll need for the foundation exam. So after I explain the whole slide, I'll point out the important parts. The first phase of the IT Service Continuity Management process is the initiation phase, where we decide, hey, we should probably be thinking about how we'll restore those business-critical IT services in the event of a disaster. Here we'll come up with a policy, we'll establish the scope, and we'll get a project started. Next, we'll gather up our requirements and we'll come up with our IT service continuity strategy. And we get these directly from the business continuity strategy. This means that we'll be thinking about our long-term goals. Next, we move on to our implementation phase. And this is where we come up with our actual plans, our step-by-step recovery procedures, and we'll figure out how we're actually going to test this thing. During the ongoing operation phase, we educate everyone on how to use this process and what to do in the event of a disaster. And by everyone, I mean everyone. Administrators, service desk folks, end users, project managers, security guards at the front desk, external vendors, even other businesses in your neighborhood if that makes sense for you. Everyone. And then you need to test this plan under realistic circumstances. Many organizations test their IT service continuity management plan by sitting in a comfortable conference room with coffee and popcorn, and they read through their disaster recovery document like a script. But that's not realistic at all. To test these plans, you need to unplug stuff, lock people out of rooms, shut off the power to the building, bring up the backup sites, test the failover lines. Do it and do it often. Of course, when you have an actual disaster, that's the ultimate test. Down here, you'll see the activity of change management, and you can look at this line in two ways. First, anytime anyone makes an everyday change to the production environment, you'll need to ask, will this change impact our IT service continuity management plan? Chances are your IT service continuity management plan is a detailed technical document that contains things like IP addresses, server names, circuit IDs, and the like. If someone makes a change to a network segment, then the IT service continuity management plan has to get updated as well. The other way we can look at this is, anytime someone needs to make a change to the IT service continuity management document, the change needs to get approved through the change management process. We want to make sure that something as important as your disaster recovery plan gets an extra set of eyeballs. Off of this slide, the most important thing to remember is that IT service continuity management underpins and supports business continuity management. This slide shows a very simple model for risk analysis and risk management. The top half of the slide shows some proactive activities that we do because we have to analyze our risk before we can actually manage it. To analyze your risks, you should first determine the value of your assets. So let's pretend that you own a classic 1957 Chevy that's worth $50,000. So your car is your asset, and it's valued at $50,000. Every time you think about taking your car out for a spin, you need to consider the risks. You know, for example, that your classic car doesn't have power steering, so it doesn't handle like an agile sports car. So the fact that it doesn't handle very well is a vulnerability. You also know that in slippery road conditions, like when it's snowing out, that's a threat that can exploit your car's vulnerability of poor handling. Since you've thought about this stuff, you've now analyzed the risk. Now you need to think about some countermeasures to manage that risk. One choice is, don't take out the 57 Chevy, drive a different car if it's snowing, or take the bus, or wait until the weather clears up. These are ways to get around the risk. The thing to remember is that a risk is simply something that might happen. It's not a guarantee. And there's also no way to completely eliminate your risk. All you can do is put forth your best effort to reduce those risks. So if you want to protect your company against the threat of viruses and worms, you'll install antivirus software on your machines and you'll close up any unnecessary firewall ports. Because machines that don't have antivirus software installed or ports that are wide open are vulnerabilities just waiting to be exploited. IT service continuity management isn't the only process where we need to talk about risk management. We also think about risk in the information security management process, problem management, and availability management. The roles slide wraps up this lesson on IT service continuity management. Like all other processes, you'll have someone identified as the IT service continuity management process owner. And like all other process owners, their process owner responsibilities can be easily captured in the acronym DEMI, D-E-M-I. It's been a few lessons since I spelled out what DEMI stands for, so let's review. The D stands for the fact that your process owner needs to document the process. And in this case, it's the IT service continuity management process. The E in DEMI stands for educate everyone on how to use this process and ensure that it's being followed correctly. The M in DEMI stands for monitor and measure the process for progress, effectiveness, efficiency, and cost. And the I in DEMI stands for continually improving the process. In addition to those process owner responsibilities, the IT Service Continuity Manager also performs business impact analyses for all existing services and any new services. They're also responsible for producing, testing, and maintaining all continuity and recovery plans, and that's a pretty big job. They also perform risk assessment and risk management exercises to find and fix any vulnerabilities we have. And this one's kind of interesting. They'll also invoke the continuity plan and manage it while it's in operation. So if your company is experiencing a disaster, they let everyone know that we're officially running in disaster mode, and they serve as the go-to coordination person during the disaster. and they'll also ensure that everyone is aware of what to do in the event that this plan needs to be invoked. If your organization works with vendors or suppliers for recovery services, the IT Service Continuity Manager will work with the Service Level Manager to negotiate these underpinning contracts. And as a reminder, anytime someone needs to make a system change, the IT Service Continuity Manager will assess its impact on the IT Service Continuity Plan. This person is part of the overall business continuity management team, since in this day and age, the business most likely relies on IT for some portion of the services that they provide to their external customers. We want to make sure that in the event of a disaster, the business will survive. This role slide wraps up IT Service Continuity Management. Let's move on to Lesson 7, where we'll explore Information Security Management.